incredible attack from Ukraine, Russia suffered heavy losses. In war conditions, troops must act in coordinated manner. If there is no coordination between the troops, the possibility of being destroyed by the enemy becomes easier. A good military organization uses communication systems effectively. A strong communication between troops has a positive effect on the course of the war and on the way the troops fight. On the other hand, if the communication and the interactions between units is weak, the enemy will fill the gaps and destroy the units. Artillery is one of the most important units in the modern armies. Artillery units work to benefit of all the units in field. Both armed units and infantry cannot advance without the support of artillery. The artillery units of the Ukrainian army have been performing difficult tasks since the beginning of the Russian occupation. Ukrainian artillery units play a major role in both defense and counterattack operations in the areas where they're deployed. Successful strikes by Ukrainian artillery caused deep concern among Russian troops. Recently, Ukrainian artillery units targeted a convoy of Russian armored vehicles. The images shared on social media were watched by thousands of people in a short time. Let's analyze the Ukrainian artillery operations together. Russian troops are finding it increasingly difficult to reinforce their troops on the front line as their logistical opportunities are shrinking. For this reason, the Russian army, which is trying to send reinforcements to front-line troops as soon as possible, is trying to advance clandestinely on Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian intelligence is constantly conducting reconnaissance and observation activities. Since Ukrainian intelligence is constantly conducting surveillance activities, Russian troops have little chance in Ukrainian territory. Ukrainian intelligence also obtains information flow from within the Russian troops. In this way, it knows every move of the Russian troops beforehand. The Ukrainian Central Headquarters, which has been planning operational plans with advantage of information, has been working closely with Ukrainian intelligence. We have been sharing the successes of the Ukrainian intelligence since the beginning of the war. Ukrainian intelligence is behind the successful attacks and operations of the Ukrainian army against the strategic Russian positions. According to information obtained from local sources, Ukrainian intelligence receives information both from inside Ukraine and from inside Russia. Clashes between Ukraine and Russia continue on Bakhmut front. The Ukrainian army's counterattack continues decisively. The last operations of the Ukrainian army on the front was a heavy loss for Russia. As a result of the information obtained from Ukrainian intelligence, it was understood that the Russian armed vehicles convoy would set off. As soon as Ukrainian intelligence received the news of the armed vehicle convoy, they started to monitor and observe with unmanned aerial vehicles. After the Ukrainian headquarters were informed, artillery units in the region completed their operations. Ukrainian artillery units started the operations after receiving the coordinated information of the Russian convoy tracked by drones. The Russian armored vehicles convoy, which attempted the attacks in Klishchivka region on the southern flanks of Bakhmut, was destroyed with successful shots of Ukrainian artillery. The video shared on the internet was watched by thousands of people in a short time. The Russian armored vehicle convoy, consisting of about 10 vehicles, could not escape the shots of the Ukrainian artillery. The vehicles were neutralized along with the Russian soldiers inside. The Ukrainian army, which accelerated its advance on the Bakhmut front after the operation, continues to fight with great motivation. Russian troops, on the other hand, have still not overcome the transportation problems they face. The next move of Russia, which cannot reinforce its troops on the front and lost its reinforcements as a result of the attack, is eagerly awaited. Ukrainian artillery has been carrying out a very successful operations recently. The artillery, Ukraine's most powerful weapon in counterattack operations, has a high accuracy rate. Ukrainian artillery, which creates anxiety in Russian troops with its successful shots, it is deploying new points with progress achieved in counterattacks. Ukrainian intelligence also contributes greatly to planning of counterattack operations and the necessary preparations. Ukrainian intelligence, which constantly monitors the Russian army and the troops in the region, observes the most suitable time for the operations. Ukrainian operations, which starts when the Russian troops are the most unprepared, ends in success. In the latest statements, the Ukrainian military shared that the Russian forces in Ukraine lost 12 tanks, 14 armored personnel vehicles, and 19 artillery systems in just one day. Moscow has lost a total of 4,358 tanks and 8,449 armored personnel carriers since the Russian troops crossed Ukraine's borders in February 2022, the General Staff of the Ukrainian Armed Forces said in statements. The Ukrainian military displayed Russian military losses in Kiev. Burned Russian main battle tanks, armored personnel carriers, self-propelled artillery, and even the remains of captured Russian missiles filled in the main streets of Kiev. Kiev authorities have said that apart from the parade of the Russian military equipments, there would be no public events in the capital to mark this year's Independence Day. The spokesman for Ukraine's military intelligence service said earlier this month that he expected a missile strike from Russia to coincide with the National Day. In 2014, when Russia annexed the Crimean Peninsula in southern Ukraine, Vladimir Putin's leaked remarks suggested that he could take control of Kiev in just 2 weeks if he ordered Russian troops to do so. At this point, we can say that Russia has not been able to get close to Kiev in nearly 2 years. Estimates of the scale of both Russian and Ukrainian military losses vary, but Western experts suggest that Kiev's figures are likely to be closer to the real figures. In the data shared by Ukraine, it is clear that Russia has suffered a significant loss compared to its pre-war stocks. Ukrainian officials emphasize that the war is an ongoing process not only on the ground but also psychologically. The captured and destroyed Russian combat vehicles and weapons displayed by the Ukrainian administration in Kiev give Ukraine the upper hand in psychological terms. The Ukrainian army has organized many successful operations against the Russian army, which is larger than in terms of the value. The Ukrainian army does not only focus on destroying soldiers in the operation, it renders the strategic points of the Russian troops and unable to destroy any strategic weapons of the Russian troops. This method of the Ukrainian army is considered as a move to win the war in the long term. There are many powerful weapons, equipments, and vehicles that the Ukrainian army will acquire in the future. In this case, the Ukrainian army can organize much more comprehensive operations against Russia with the new weapons it will add to its inventory in the coming days. With the US and Western support packages and the start of the F-16 process, the Ukrainian army has gained significant momentum. The fact that the Ukrainian army is getting stronger every day seems to be an important problem for Russia. For this reason, Russian troops are trying to increase their attacks against Ukraine, but they are not successful at this point. While the Ukrainian army is making progress in offensive positions, it maintains its positions in the defense positions. What do you think about the Ukrainian intelligence obtaining very important information and providing a rapid flow of the data of the Ukrainian headquarters? How do you interpret the Ukrainian army's attacks on the Russian armored vehicles convoy? How do you think the data shared by the Ukrainian army can be evaluated? Do you think the Ukrainian army will win the war in the long run? How do you assess the performance of the Ukrainian artillery units? We care about your opinion. Please share it with us.